representative government coming here to our country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to participate in the 8th summit of CELAC, the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean. My name is Richard Byron Cox. In about 15-20 minutes, we shall see the arrival here of none other than President Lula and his wife, Yanya Lula. President Lula is the head of state of Brazil, and he's coming here to participate in this important summit of the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean. I will tell you more about President Lula, a little bit about his life and how he arrived at the position of president of his huge country, which has a population of over 214 million and presently occupy 11th place as regards size of economy in the world today. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about CELAC and what it's about, okay? As I've said before, for those of you who were following me early this morning, this is the 8th summit. In other words, the 8th meeting of the heads of states at the highest level we are talking about of countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. And countries are being represented from Mexico right down to Argentina. And what is CELAC? And why is it important to St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Well, as you know, our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, in the name of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, took over the presidency of CELAC a year ago. And we have been sort of the secretariat running the affairs of this community of states. Now, you might ask the question, what's the difference between the OAS, the Organization of American States, which is based in Washington, D.C., and a CELAC? Well, there are many differences. First and foremost, the Organization of American States, established in 1948, if my memory serves me right, I studied these things a long time ago at university. I think before 1948, it's actually the first regional organization to be established anywhere in the world. And it involved originally all the states of the Americas. At that time, countries like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in fact, the entire English-speaking Caribbean knew nothing about independence. As you would know, we began to get our independence in the 1960s, beginning first with Jamaica and then later on with Trinidad and Tobago, to be followed by Barbados in 1966 and Guyana in that same year. Now, the Organization of American States was intended for all the states of America, and Cuba was also a part of that. But then with the Cuban Revolution in 1959, on the 1st of January, and of course, after the Americans backed invasion of Cuba, Cuba was expelled from the Organization of American States. And so you had an organization which is supposed to represent the whole of the Americas, but Cuba was out of it. How could this be? You know? And so there were different bodies, including the group of Rio, the Rio group, so to speak. And these were bodies that tried to involve everybody in one way or the other, because the Organization of American States in many ways was seen as an organization which carried out the dictates of certain countries. So the first difference is membership. Canada and the United States of America are both members of the Organization of American States. None of them are members of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States. The reason for this is because we are Latin America and the Caribbean. Latin America and the Caribbean stretches from Mexico right down to Argentina. It involves the Caribbean, what we call Mesoamerica or Middle America, and South America, okay? It does not involve North America. That's the first thing. Secondly, this organization, which was born in 2011, the idea of it was first in 2010, okay? But it came into being in 2011. And one of the things that you need to know about this organization, nature is anti-imperialist. What does that mean? Well, that actually means that we all know that America is the most powerful country in the world. After the First World War, America became basically the most powerful country in the world, but that was cemented after the Second World War. And by the 1970s, okay, the world had agreed that the American currency, the American dollar, okay, would be more or less, you know, the world currency. All of these things guaranteed America's position, apart from the size of its economy. Now, of course, when Fidel came to power on the 1st January 1959, and Fidel decided that this would be a socialist revolution. This was not to the liking of the Americans and others. And so Cuba was then expelled, yes, expelled from the Organization of American States. There are many countries, including our own country, who felt that this is wrong, politically wrong. And the reason why is that it's like everything else. We have to learn to live in a community irrespective of our political differences. And each country has a right to follow its own path. St. Vincent follow a particular path. America follows a particular path, kind of does the same thing, and Uruguay and Paraguay and whoever else, okay? But if we are a community, we need to learn to embrace each other. And so the community of states of Latin America and the Caribbean is a community which does not involve Canada and the United States of America. They are up in what we call North America. Now, outside of that, you must know that this is not, the name we use was not the Organization of Latin American and Caribbean States. It's very important to understand the difference. It is not just an organization. A matter of fact, it's not an organization. It's a community. We come together. We work together, we live together, okay? We do things together irrespective of political differences, okay? Because we belong in one hemisphere, the hemisphere of the Americas. And so we are all Americans, whether we like this or not, you know? We are all Americans because we are in the hemisphere of the Americas. And we need to learn to live together. Over the years, since the establishment of the Organization of American States, we have had interventions by the American government in many states across the region, from Haiti, which we know is in trouble right now, to Nicaragua, and we could go on and on. This is real, to Grenada, if you would remember, and so on and so forth. What the community of states of Latin America and the Caribbean seek to do is to work together irrespective of those political differences. Outside of that, there are challenges which are common to all of us, but which are not so common to America and Canada. America is an extremely powerful country. It is the #1 country in the world, economically speaking. It's the #1 country in the world, militarily speaking. It is close to, or is #1 as regards technology, you know, and so on. The biggest economy in this Latin American Caribbean of ours is Brazil. It's number 11. You understand? You can see the difference that we are talking about here. And the common issues of climate change, the common issues of poverty, the common issues of confronting imperialism, you know, and the issues of working together, regardless of political persuasion, ideologies, and so on, requires that you come together in common. In other words, you form a community. And as we know, Hugo Chavez, the late Hugo Chavez, whom we have to thank greatly, and the people of Venezuela for the building of this international airport. Actually, Dr. Gonzalez, our Prime Minister, tells a story of when they came here the first time, he with the great Hugo, and the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, was showing Hugo, well, you know, this area and so on. And Hugo said, fine, 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 I understand, nice place and so on. But where are you going to build the airport? And Prime Minister Gonzalez said, here. Hugo said, what? And Ralph said, yes, we're going to build it here. And Hugo was like, in Spanish, tú estás loco, you are crazy. And Ralph, the translator, then said to Prime Minister Gonzalez what Hugo said. And Prime Minister Gonzalez returned that's the greatness about this Prime Minister. He had the answer immediately. He said, and you are even more crazy than I, because you're going to build it for me. You're going to help me build it. You know, so this place that we are talking about here today, from where I am speaking to you, you know, has a lot to do with that community as well. Yes, it has. It is because through these kinds of interaction, through this kind of community, we was able to get the help of Mexico. We were able to get the help of Cuba. We were able to get help. We were able to get the help of Venezuela. Okay? And of course, we got help from Trinidad and Tobago, which is also part of this whole setup. You see, sometimes we have to understand what these things are about. We have to look deeper. So what you have here is a community made up of all of these states. Some of them you might not have even heard about. You know, Paraguay and Uruguay. Well, we would say Uruguay in English. In Spanish, we say Uruguay. You know, all of these countries, you know, Bolivia and so on and so forth, they all make up part and parcel of this community of states. A matter of fact, the community of states that we are speaking about, we have English language as spoken by us, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, etc. We have French as spoken by Haiti. We have Spanish as spoken by Dominican Republic and Cuba. And we have Dutch as spoken by Suriname. And we have Portuguese as spoken by Brazil, the biggest of them all. So you see, again, embracing these differences and being able to get across these bridges of language, of different culture, of different people, but more than anything else, of different political ideologies, and being able to live as a community and work as a community, right, is why CELAC is so important. As regards the OAS, the political ideology of some seek to dominate and tell all the others how they should behave and why they should behave a particular way. You understand? In other words, it is not a community interest that is of importance, but first and foremost, the interest of the powerful. In the community is the interest of all. That is why it is a community. Now, our Prime Minister is a brave man. And yes, he's a very brave man. He's a courageous man. But he's a man who has so much faith in this country. And he has demonstrated that faith many, many, many times. Now, I had said earlier, and I want to explain it a little bit more now, our foreign policy, our diplomacy, our interaction with other nations, our march on the international stage is showing great, great maturity. And you know how we know that? We know that because the rest of the world is agreeing with us. The rest of the world listens to us. And the rest of the world has faith in us. Okay? And this is why we became, in the person of our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, why we became president of CELAC. And so today and tomorrow, we are having this meeting, this summit, where all of these people are coming here to visit us and to participate. Our foreign policy has shown dynamism, okay? We move seamlessly from left to right, and everybody understands us. We are friends of all. We strive for a better world. It shows dynamism, okay? It shows flexibility, okay? We can talk to Iran, and we can talk to Israel. We can talk to China, and we can talk to the Republic of China, Taiwan. We can do these things, and we have done these things, right? But we can talk across languages. Whether it's Portuguese, Spanish, or French. We can talk across cultures, whether it's the French culture, French Creole culture, Portuguese Creole culture, Spanish Creole culture. We can talk across those cultures and meet people. And they know we can do it, and they appreciate that we can do it. And that is why they all agree that we can play a leadership role, you understand, at the regional level. Well, let's begin sub-regional. OECS, right? CARICOM, hemispheric, and world. World, I don't have to prove it, you know, because we sat on the United Nations Security Council for 2 years. And that leads me into another thing. Apart from President Lula, who will arrive about 12:30 today, we have Secretary General, my former boss, Antonio Gutierrez, who is Portuguese. So what we are seeing here is the maturity of the foreign policy of a very young country, a country which is only 45 years old. We are in our 45th year of independence, and what we see is recognition of that maturity of that foreign policy. What we see is recognition of our philosophy, friends of all, we strive for a better world. It's recognition of that why all these people are coming here. It's recognition of that why people vote for us and ask us to play leadership, listen to me, leadership position in these things. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is President pro tempore. President pro tempore, you understand, of a community of more than 600 million people, you know. And listen, we must remember, you know, during that 1 year, Prime Minister Gonzalez, as President pro tempore, was the lead, the chief, the boss diplomat for the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean when we met with the European Union. Do you remember that? Oh yes, our Prime Minister, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you understand, led the entire Latin America in our most recent negotiations with the European Union. And there were serious questions there to answer. Serious issues. For example, the issue of reparations. So, Prime Minister Gonzalez, as President pro tempore, led those discussions on behalf of the entire Latin America and the Caribbean. This is why we must understand that this dollar and cents accounting in diplomacy, foreign policy, and in the exercise of our behavior, so to speak, at the international level, right, is a narrow view as to how one is supposed to practice foreign policy, as to how one is supposed to practice diplomacy. We must understand these things. Listen, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and CARICOM, I dare say, can never ever effectively address the question of reparations if we don't have support from others. We are tiny, we are 110,000 people. Barbados is less than 300,000 people. Jamaica is less than 3 million people. Trinidad and Tobago is less than 3 million people. Okay? How are we going to address those questions? What about the question of climate change? We have to be able to use the different leverages, okay, that exist. And this is where things like CELAC come in. Because we can sit down with them and say, listen, right? It's 1.5 as regards climate change. In other words, we cannot go beyond 1.5 rise in temperature for our survival. The entire coast, including this airport, might well be covered by the sea if temperatures continue to rise. And you have to understand that this argument that we take to the rest of the world for our very survival, we cannot do it alone. We have to do it with others. And so this is what things like CELAC give to us. As I said before, the OAS is an organization which should involve all of us, but Cuba is expelled. And Cuba's voice is very important. It has proven that time and time again across the globe. You know, if you would recall, if you want to recall, when Prime Minister Gonzalez came to power in 2001, it was Cuba who came here to deal with the shortage of nurses that we had. Okay, Cuba has provided us with educational opportunities, infrastructural development, including hospitals and so on and so forth. You would remember that some of the bridges were built by a military brigade from, I think it was Ecuador, right? All of this, these are all people within this framework that we call CELAC. As I've said before,